In this video, I'm going to show you a drill that you can utilize, that you can begin to implement. It was inspired by Rashad versus Liddell. The fight when they fought, Liddell was very flat-footed and he was coming in heavy with his hands down, and Rashad was moving around, he was moving laterally, he was relaxed, and he was constantly throwing jabs until the overhand right connected right after a jab. Fantastic fight, and this was inspired by it. So it's a three-piece movement in here, and I'm going to substitute overhand right for a cross. So I'm not going to throw overhand right, but you can either throw a cross or an overhand right like Rashad did. So the drill is can be broken down into three movements. You have your footwork, which is lateral movement, side to side, and then you have your jabs that you're going to pump out in order to keep somebody at bay, to gauge your distance, and then eventually that sets up for a cross in my case, or if you want to swap it for an overhand right, you're going to throw an overhand right. So the first movement is the lateral movement, side to side. So the way you utilize lateral movement, and I haven't covered this in detail yet, so I'm going to briefly just kind of show you what to do so you know how to do it. But I want to cover that in more detail later in some other video. But lateral movement is basically moving side to side. And the way you do that is you're going to shuffle side to side. The key here that you want to begin to implement is not to get your feet close. So you don't want to shuffle side to side as you move by bringing your one foot close to the other, narrowing your stance and removing your balance, and then moving over. You want to be able to move. If you're going to move one direction, whichever direction you move, that's the foot. The foot in that direction moves first. So if I'm going to go to the left, I'm going to move my left foot first. If I'm going to go to the right, my right foot goes first. So it's not opposite, making myself out of balance. It's the same side, and that's the foot that's going to go first. So that's the first movement. Lateral movement, side to side. And you want to be able to be very loose and just kind of go back and forth. You know, you can go a couple of steps to the side, couple of steps to the other side, or you can just constantly just shift back and forth. Never narrowing your feet. That's the key. So that's the first movement. Back and forth, lateral movement. The second step, or the second movement, is your jab. So as you move side to side, you want to stay loose, and you want to keep your hands up. You want to be in your fighting stance, and you want to be kind of pawing your jab, throwing your jab in order to keep him at bay, and so he doesn't come in and start attacking you. And that sets up your eventual cross or overhand right. But also, you know, you can throw your snapping jab in order to kind of, you know, sting, or you can paw the jab in order so he doesn't close the distance and start punching you. So that jab is very important because that will set up your power shot. So as you incorporate your jab, you want to start throwing the jab as you move, constantly pawing, keep them at bay, and gauging your distance until you realize when they're open and when they're reacting, or you are within distance. You can throw your cross or the overhand. And the power shot, that's your third movement. So as you go side to side, as you move laterally, you pump your jab. And again, you don't have to stand sideways. That's an important thing. You can be in your fighting stance, and you can move side to side laterally in your fighting stance. So you don't have to be square like this. You could, but you can switch back and forth to orthodox and then back to southpaw and still move laterally. It's actually a good little trick to hide your transition to the other stances. So as you begin to move, not letting them set up any shots, you're hard to hit because you're moving, your hands are up, your jab is flying out there, you're pawing, and then you just have to time your cross or the overhand right. And you drill this. You simply side to side, visualize your opponent, visualize him punching you, visualize him coming in or out. You jab, 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 and then you throw that cross. Again, I'm throwing fast, but you begin this drill slow, then you flow, and then you speed up and go fast. So as you move, throw the jab, move laterally, hand movement, hand up, timing your cross, or overhand, and then when you're ready, you fire that cross overhand. The important part when you throw that cross, make sure that when you throw it, you have two options. You either throw it straight. As you move, you basically almost throwing it, you're throwing it off a jab, but you might be also throwing it in mid-movement. And when you do that, you might throw it straight. As you move, you throw it straight down the line, or you move off the center line. You throw a jab, cross comes, and you move whatever he might be throwing. Because first of all, he's very likely pressuring you, and that's why you're moving side to side. So when he pressures you, you begin to throw that jab, and then he's probably going to come in with his counter, with his offensive attack, which is going to be, something heavy. Overhand, cross, uppercut, hook. So moving your head up the center line, right off the jab, will help. That could often be a deciding factor. And actually in the fight it was. Rashad threw an overhand right, and he moved his head off the center line. The uppercut came. I think it was an uppercut. I think Liddell was throwing an uppercut or a modified hook. And he basically, the punch Liddell threw, it missed Rashad because he moved off the center line and he connected with that overhand, and that what knocked Liddell out. So you have an option depending on the reaction by jab, jab, cross, straight, or jab, jab, off the center line, straight cross, while moving your head off that center line, just if something comes in, going for your head. And same thing applies for the overhand. So you can drill both, you can drill one, focus on one. That's what I usually like to do. I focus on one, then maybe I introduce and focus on another, and then I try to combine the two by just flowing with it. So 3 movements, that's all it takes. Lateral movement, stay loose, hands up, pile your jab, set up. As you move, throw that cross right off of that jab when they're coming in, or when you are feeling you're within distance to connect with that cross or overhand. Now, a little side note on the footwork, on lateral movement, then when you're doing it, my personal preference and the way I train and the way I'm comfortable is I stand a little bit more wider as I move laterally. I don't tend to put my feet close together like this as I move forward or back. If I'm going forward or back or laterally, I don't like to put my feet close together. I rather keep them wider and then shoulder width back apart into the fighting stance. It's totally fine. And actually Rashad does this when he moves side to side. He tends to kind of put his feet a little closer together. So it's not wrong. It's just the way you train and how you feel comfortable and how you drilled. So the way I'm telling that you should do it is you should not get your feet close together. You should be a little bit more wider apart, and you should stay a little wider so you don't be out of balance the opposite way. If you move the opposite foot forward in order to go this way. But Rashad did it. He's a professional. So it's not wrong. It's just a personal preference, and I just kind of like this, wider stance first rather than the opposite. Also, very important, this drill is not a beginner drill. You have many different movements that you are combining into one. So if you are a beginner and you're trying to implement using footwork, movement, and punching within movement, not just a self movement of moving your body and hands at the same time, but also adding footwork in the middle of it, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. So this is more of an intermediate to advanced drill, only for those who have experience and some drilling, utilizing footwork, utilizing parries, bobbing, weaving, moving. So if you're a beginner, do not do this drill. You might have to break it down into their own individual movements. Lateral drill alone by itself will wear your legs out. If you've never done this before, doing this combined with punching 30, 60, 90 seconds of highly, a little bit more intense work, your legs are going to be shot. So never done footwork, just drill lateral movement. Then you might want to combine punching and moving, not within lateral movement, but just being able to move and just throw your jab, throw your cross, and then combining lateral movement and then being able to time and being able to land your shots. Not just the jab, but then ultimately the cross. Another important thing is because when you are striking and moving, the number one mistake, well, first of all, everything else falls apart because you're moving, you're out of balance, you're trying to throw, all your everything just goes out the window. You're trying to remain balanced. So it's very important that when you move and strike, both of your feet are on the ground. That's a common mistake beginners make, even high level guys, is when they move, they throw in the middle of movement and they're on one leg. The other leg is up in the air, they're hopping around. So very, very important. Do not drill this as a beginner. Break each of these movements down, get good with them, then begin to combine one, just add in layers. And if you haven't gotten your jab, your cross, your fundamentals, your lead hook and a rear uppercut down, you don't have your proper fight stance, then you need the course, you need to go through the course and you need to drill everything that's in the course before you even attempt this drill. It's a fantastic drill, but again, it's not for beginners.